Rosen. I call myself the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I'm really excited to be talking to you this week in another Facebook live session with adrenal fatigue. We had a little vote, and we voted for adrenal fatigue and anxiety, something that I can totally relate to, and something that got me to understand all about what adrenal fatigue is all about. And so we'll be sharing some really awesome, important information about this. So I'm really excited for that. I guess really what I want to start off with is realizing that we are in the middle of, or just the starting of August. And that's crazy to me because it just kind of goes to show you that as you're doing your thing, time passes you by. And that's where we get more of a reality check as to when you are starting off in the beginning of the year and then you get towards the end of the year and you realize nothing's changed. You realize, oh my goodness, I'm still anxious. And maybe one day I won't be so anxious. Or maybe I'm still exhausted, I'm still tired. And so it's good every now and then to keep accountable in terms of time. So I think accountable is good because when you lose track of time like that and you start to just suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer, then the whole point is that when are you going to decide to do something about it? And so I'm really glad to be talking about anxiety and as it relates to adrenal fatigue because I think they play off of each other quite nicely. And what we're going to try to do is talk about the mechanical breakdowns that occur in the body that you need to be accountable for, that you need to be able to identify, and you need to be able to try to help your body heal as best as it can based on what's breaking down and understanding all the different ways that there's possible breakdowns and trying to cross things off your list in terms of, yep, that's me, or no, that's not me. But you have to have understanding. And that's what these Facebook Live talks are all about. So I really want to talk about some of these bullet points. And that's what I do. I put down these bullet points. I know a lot of you guys want me to turn the mirror backwards. And I think I got that right today. So I apologize, number one, for not having that turned the right way. But number two, I don't want you to be taking notes. I want you to be thinking about how is this applying to your life. And maybe you don't have it written down and then you won't check it later and you might forget what I said. But really, you'll be too busy trying to write down what I said and maybe forget what I said and not busy enough figuring out how it applies to you. So I don't mean that as any disrespect. I mean that as you can write it down too, but the thing is this video is available for replay. So I want you to kind of not necessarily write it down. It's good to see it in the proper context, but I want you to think more about how it applies to you and your body and as opposed to the theory. And that's another correlation between as you go from January to August and you're not being accountable. One of the things is that you're too busy doing theory and you're not busy enough applying. That's really important key distinction. Yes, you want to know the right thing to do. You want to know, is this the thing I should do? Is that the thing I can do? My doctor hasn't heard about this. I'm getting more anxious and tired. I don't sleep. My gut feels bad. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I can't lose weight. But anxiety specifically as it relates to adrenal fatigue, if you have all those things also and you're anxious, it sucks. It sucks to not be controlling in terms of having that constant sort of gut-wrenching, clenching feeling that is just always there. And so am I talking like I have that right now? I don't have that. I used to have that. But it required me to understand that I have some predispositions, and that's what we're going to be talking about with adrenal fatigue and anxiety. We're going to be talking about genetic predispositions because a lot of people want to know about MTHFR and how does that relate. I have COMT. Do I take medications? Should I take something that's going to help me focus a little bit more? Something that I'm going to be a little less anxious? You got to think about how the neurotransmitters and the genetics has to do it with it as well. We're going to be talking about nutrients. We're going to be talking about absorption and digestion. Obviously, that's going to be a really important component. If you're not breaking down your foods, you're not absorbing your foods, there's going to be a whole problem sequence as a result of that. The other things we obviously want to know is you can't think about anxiety and without thinking about blood sugar. So if you're not balancing your blood sugar and you're eating, or you're crashing, or you're getting shaky, lightheaded, and jittery, or you're just crashing after a meal, or you're just not able to keep it stable because it goes too low, then you have to understand the relationship. So far, nutrition, the gut, digestion, and blood sugar. I'd say those were the two key deal breakers that if you don't fix some of those things, then don't bother going on to some of those other things. So what does the adrenals have to do with it? Adrenals is not even first. It's third, and the nutrients and blood sugar wasn't really adrenals. Or was it? It was the adrenals. So if you have decreased absorption and you don't absorb your macronutrients, your proteins and your carbs and your fats, you're going to miss out on essential production and the main things in your body that require building and repairing and fighting off infections. Those are the big things. What about the small things? The things like the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients. If you're not absorbing those, then how are you going to be able to make and break things and make reactions happen and have energy? You're not. And so why does that happen? Why don't we break down our foods very well? Potentially because we have a healthy biome or an unhealthy biome. So if we have a microbiome that's not healthy, then it's not going to be able to secrete the proper juices, the enzymes, and the hydrochloric acid, and the stuff that you need to absorb fat or break down fat and absorb B12. You need good functioning biome. And if we have infections, pathogens, exposures to toxins, chemicals, pesticides, parasites, heavy metal toxicities, if you have all those things, those are going to impact, hey Sarah, hope you're doing well. Those are going to impact your gut, and that's going to cause you not to absorb and digest these foods. That's going to be a huge problem. Of which, okay, so what do the adrenals have to do? Well, if we have inflammation, that's going to be a stressor, and that stressor is going to cause the adrenals to have to kick into gear. And so it's important for you to realize things need to be thought of as how they break down. So with the adrenals, if the adrenals are constantly being shifted into gear, because the adrenals are the clutch of your car, the clutch of your body, and if you're not shifting the adrenals into gear when you have different stressors, because you have to settle down inflammation, you have to balance blood sugar, you have to make sure your electrolytes are balanced, you have to do all those things. You got to settle down from being riled up and thinking about all the stressors you got to think about all the time. So when the adrenals are bombarded like that, then guess what happens? It doesn't stabilize blood sugar and it breaks down nutrients. So there's a sort of give and take relationship. So how does this apply to you, and how does this apply to not having to write this down? So think about, how's your gut health? How are you absorbing things? What are you doing in terms of breaking down things? What are you doing in terms of getting a good representation of food? Because if we're not eating a healthy meal and we're eating foods that aren't from a good, rich source of minerals and vitamins, and where days is that? There's not a lot of that anymore. There's not a lot of good roots and ground earth to make the nutrients high. So you got to really think and be accountable for, what are your nutrients that you're eating? You know, if you showed me a list of all the foods on a daily basis that you were eating, are they healthy nutrients? Do you cheat once or twice? Those are okay, you're human. But if you are taking shortcuts and you're not being accountable and you're not making the sacrifices it takes to eat healthy foods, and not coming up with excuses and not thinking about it as, I just don't want to feel a little bit better, I need to get better. And maybe you're not sick enough, which is good, because if you're not sick enough, then you don't have these anxieties and you're just kind of looking for information. Or maybe you're really sick and tired. Who are the people that are sick and tired of just doing the same things over and over and over and over again, and not necessarily getting the same results, getting a little bit better, getting a little bit worse, get a little bit better but not quite there. You just never really get over the hump, and you never really figure out a plan to keep it over the hump. And that's really key, important distinction. And so think about the quality of your minerals and your nutrients that you're eating. Think about how often are you stabilizing your blood sugar, and how are you going about doing that? Because that's really important if you don't know what's going on. Obviously, adrenals, we just talked about, they balance the minerals, they stabilize the blood sugar, and they also settle down inflammation. Those things we just talked about. The other thing that what happens is the adrenals are an cytotoxin. So what it will do is it will excite the different receptors in the body if it's constantly being released. And when we have excitotoxicity with inflammation, that's a deadly combination. That inflammation and that excitotoxicity creates neurotransmitter imbalances. And potentially we get anxious when we don't shift gears properly and we're not a clutch and it's a bumpy ride. Then all of a sudden there's a neurotransmitter issue, and you're not thinking that it was related to the adrenals, or you're not thinking about the gut breakdown, or you're not thinking about the blood sugar, or you're not thinking about the gut infections. You're not thinking about all that stuff. The other thing we need to talk about is liver. So liver is huge. I mean, liver is that sort of that underrated player of the year. That's really what it is. That just dominates, but you don't really pay attention to him because it's just doing his job in and out all day long. That's what the liver is. So it has to break down toxins. It's got to store iron, and it's got to manufacture and deal with that. And the reason I'm bringing up iron is because iron has a huge relationship to neurotransmitters. So if we have iron deficiencies, or we have iron is produced in excess because of inflammation, and that's something you can check for, and you can get some insight on. Or is your homocysteine levels high and liver's not doing a good job? And what does MTHFR have to do with all this? If you're thinking those things, you're in the right area and you're in the right ballpark, but you're missing out some other key distinctions. It's kind of like one of those things where you can't have an off day in all of the things. You have to be at least doing a little bit of those things more consistently than you're not. Or you got to think, it sucks to suck, and I don't want to continue suffering this way. Or you got to think, man, my pain threshold is higher, and there's always what if, or I don't know, and all this and all that. And there's really a difference between being interested in getting better and being committed to getting better. And there's a difference between dabbling in something and being fully committed that you don't have any other option to get better because you realize the writing's on the wall, your family depends on you, you need to earn an income, you're not that person who stays home at night because you don't want to go out, you are not that person that just can't figure it out and people are relying on you and you're relying on you. And so, or maybe it's just not that bad enough. And I mean, I like to keep people accountable because it comes down to, you can write this down and you can think about it and you got to really study it, but that's not going to trump accountability. And that's not going to trump like, I don't want to live this way anymore. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to go off topic there. So now talking about liver, how does liver have to do with everything? It has to do with producing or reducing hormones and also toxins and exciticity. We already talked about that. And then lastly, genetics. So genetics are a really important part of the puzzle that a lot of people are missing out on. So we got a lot going on here. I did a couple of extra things on here. I wrote down, if we're looking at nutrients and absorption and digestion, then there's some really great tests you can do. I really love the SpectraCell. SpectraCell, many patients have already done that by the time I see them. If they haven't done it, there is a certain part of it that potentially could be covered with insurance. But so anyways, the way it works is that they have this really cool chart, which I'm going to attach to the Facebook group, and it talks about anxiety. I just actually happened to see this today, and it talks about the nutrients that, if you're not absorbing, could contribute to feelings of anxiety. So chromium to balance blood sugar, that can cause basically anxiety. Also carnitine, if that's not going inside the cell and helping the mitochondria, then you can have oxidative stress, and that can be anxiety producing. The vitamin D and vitamin E, those are fat soluble vitamins that if you're not absorbing your fat, then you're not helping your immune system, and that can cause inflammation and exciticity, and that can cause you to be anxious. The B vitamins, zinc, selenium. It's good. Here's the thing. It's good to look at this, and it's good to figure out what are your breakdowns that are occurring, and try to replenish those. It's a good thing to do. But if you got a lot of other stuff going on in your body, just like if you find the right medication and it helps that person, sometimes there are these genetic things that mix with your body and they overproduce things or underproduce things. And if you can take a medication that will help that, and you do, and it does help you, then that potentially could be life-changing. And I'm not against that. What I'm against is that if you got a lot of other things going on and you're not taking accountability and you're dabbling and you're not feeling better and you have gotten a little bit better but then you regress, but really you look and it's August and it's already, I'm still feeling crappy. Life continues to pass me by and I haven't improved myself. And that's the accountability that I think I was talking about. So you have to look at your absorption, and I'll attach that. That's a good level to start with. Don't get me wrong, it's a good level to start with. So where do you do that? You just take a pill for this, a pill for that, a pill for this. That's going to be about 8 different things, and that's only the vitamins and minerals. You haven't even gotten into anywhere else. And so where's a better way of getting this? A better way of getting this is food. And what did we talk about? Food with nutrients and depletion of minerals from the soil. And you're kind of dabbling. And yeah, you do that every now and then, but you don't do that all the time. Could it really be adding up? I just had a patient today who told me, who we've been trying to help out, and she's been going up and down. And so we're really trying to eliminate neurotoxicities and cytotoxicities, and so we got her off the Diet Coke, which is great. She's working really, really hard to do this. And so we were troubleshooting, hadn't talked to her for a while, figuring out what she's drinking. And she's drinking another flavored water that is all nothing but aspartame. The same thing that we were getting her off in terms of the neuroexcitotoxicity in the actual diet sodas. So she wasn't even doing anything. Well, I talked to her today, and she already told me, even just after one day, that she had, for the first time in a long time, was able to fall asleep at midday. And she hadn't been able to do that. So what did that have to do with anything we're talking about? It had to do with the fact that she's committed. She's doing these things that take the little hinges that swing big doors that ultimately help you repair and recover, because you're about living your life, and you're about getting better and paying the price, and you're about identifying the things that make you anxious, you're identifying the things that you get exhausted and tired about, and you are seeing how you can combat them, and you're putting some goals in place to be able to improve your life, to be able to live the life worth of purpose, because you're sick and tired. So that's really important to think about in terms of also when we're talking about everything in proportion here. So now the last thing that I wanted to talk about was genetics. So I know I'm rambling on, but there's a lot of stuff to go on, and it's going to be hard for me to do this. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try and give you guys some information over here. It's kind of hard to figure this out. But anyways, what we're looking at is we're looking at the methylation profile. And I wanted to talk to you about the genetic relationship. So we have people who have anxiety in the family. There's a history of maybe depression or mood disorders, or not being able to focus and concentrate. And remember what I said, if you're not balancing blood sugar, that's going to cause a lot of neuroexcitotoxicity and inflammation. So anyways, we're talking about the genetic test now, and we're not even talking about MTHFR. We're talking about something called DHFR. And I see a lot of patients that they don't even know they have this DHFR, and they don't even have MTHFR, or they have both. But that DHFR is a very important kick-starting enzyme. So think about kick-starting a motorcycle. It basically kick-starts the reaction. So what it does is it kick-starts the reaction to make methylfolate, but we're only concerned about methylfolate. Why do we need to kickstart it? You need to kickstart it because you need to regenerate it 1 billion times per second. So if you're not kickstarting it, sometimes it's not that MTHFR problem. So then all of a sudden you don't have enough iron, and that DHFR enzyme's not working properly because we identified that from the genetic report. And then we see you don't have any iron. Iron's an important cofactor to help make your aminos get turned into those neurotransmitters. So what does that have to do with anything? If you don't have iron absorption, liver's not working so well, there's some other inflammatory things messing up your iron, there's some anemia things and B12 things, or just delivery of oxygen, then you are not going to make your neurotransmitters. I'm going to make the problem even worse where we have the tryptophan in green, and it goes all the way down. So wherever there's red, it stops. Wherever it's green, it goes down. So if we have stress and inflammation and gut breakdown, then we are going to feed that tryptophan. That what we want to do is we want to make something that's excitotoxic. So we upregulate an enzyme in favor of getting excitotoxicity, and we reduce the neurotransmitter. So now you're double whammied. You're moving out on the enzymes and the neurotransmitters that would otherwise help with focus and concentration, and you're making it excitotoxic. Here's the double whammy. If we have DHFR, or if we have COMT, or we have PNMT, if we have SAMe, if we have a lot of enzymes that aren't working properly, then your enzymes are not going to be working properly, and you're not going to be breaking these things down, but you're not even getting a lot in there. So it's kind of like still waters, and that's where medication comes in. It could be helpful, but that's where all the other things we talked about comes in, and fixing all of those things. The other thing we like to talk about are the other enzymes, and also the other things that we need. One of the things I tell patients that could be an awesome nutrient is something called PQQ. Because what PQQ does is it reduces the slowing of the enzyme that converts dopamine into adrenaline. And when that happens, you have more dopamine around. And guess what dopamine is? Excitotoxic. And guess what happens when you don't have adrenaline around? You don't handle stress very well. Guess what happens when you don't handle stress very well? You get anxious. So there is a genetic component, but there's all these other things that we explained over here that need to get done first. So anyways, just wanted to give you guys a primer. I think that's a good video for today. I hope you got a couple of distinctions, a couple of lessons about this Facebook live session. You got the idea that there's a lot of things that can go wrong. You got the idea that it's your gut needs to be addressed. You need to balance your blood sugars. You got the idea of how the adrenals are involved and how that can impact your body. You got the idea of liver. We got the idea of genetics. And I think the most important thing for me was me kind of keeping you in your place and really talking to you about, are you accountable? And that means, are you really doing all that it takes to get better? Are you cutting corners because you're just tired, or you're doing 100% everything you could be and you don't know what else is missing? A lot of you are in there, but even just one or two things that you're not doing can be really, really impactful. And that's really important too. But I think we're human. We make mistakes, or we just get in a routine and we think, oh, it's not that bad. Then it's August, and it's August of 2017. It's not August of 2014. This is 3 stinking years that you've been tired, or 20 years that you've been tired. When does it finally stop? That's when you have to make that decision. So anyways, I hope you guys, I really do like those loves. I've been so focused on not messing up. I haven't been reading anything that you guys have been saying, but I appreciate the support. Usually I like to open up the topic for any questions that you may want me to answer. I probably there's more questions, but the one that I'm seeing right here is dizziness is a symptom of adrenal fatigue. It could be, we've talked about the fact that when you don't balance your blood sugar and you have a drop of blood sugar, or your adrenals aren't working well and they can't balance the just the basic things that require to keep your heart rate steady and your blood pressure and the electrolytes and minerals and your temperature, they signal that to be able to get done. And so if the adrenals aren't working very well, or there's just a lot of wear and tear on the body, then the body can't make that effectively. I hope that helps. Will this video be online later? I hope so. I need to listen again. Good. Yes, it will be online again. The other thing I'd like to say, if you're a member of this group, it's always on the Facebook page. And I think if you go to the resources, they have the videos of whatever I've uploaded in the past. I'm sorry, I don't know my fingers there. Whatever I've uploaded in the past, and then also the Facebook Live sessions. The other thing I want to say is that I do 45-minute consults. We call them discovery calls, and it's pretty intensified. It's for those that really are serious, and a lot of what I say here makes sense. And you're doing a lot, but you're missing out on some important things, or you're not doing very much. But the most important thing of all of that is you are sick and tired of not living the life you need.